Hello everybody, welcome back. It has been 4 weeks since I did my last update. I know that there are a lot of questions from you guys. Yesterday I put up a Q&A box on my Instagram and said, hey, I'm doing a quick check-in. If you've got any questions that you would like answered, please go ahead and drop them here. So I have several pages of questions that I'm going to go and answer at the very end of this video. And I know there were a lot of questions about the app. I'll also save that response to the end. I want to start with all of my data. I want to go through, I guess, some of the strategies that I've been implementing over the last couple of weeks, talk about my nutrition, talk about my exact training approach, what training program I'm doing, and hopefully give you guys some tips and insights as well about how to navigate your own personal goals. And if you've got questions, make sure that at the end of the video, you drop your questions into the YouTube question part. Normally at the end of these videos, I'll go through and do a Q&A. Sorry, because it's been so long, I had to do it on Instagram yesterday, but we have lots of things to discuss. So first and foremost, we'll address the elephant in the room. It's not the one that's sitting on my lap. Oh my gosh, I have Kay here. He is such a needy boy, but I love him. But I think I'm sick. So, oh my goodness, this is so festy, or at least this is what I think has happened. So, oh my gosh, I have razor blade throat like pain right now, and like from here to here I am just struggle bus. Last night I went to bed with like a toilet roll literally by my head. I'm pretty sure I had like plugs up my nose and I was like, please sleep. But on Friday, 4th of July morning, I just started feeling like rotten. Like, you know, when you just know that you know yourself. I was like, oh, I have excessive muscle soreness. Considering I've been doing the same program now for like 3 or 4 weeks, that was unusual to me. So it was almost like my recovery was starting to waver a little bit. And yeah, I could just start to feel like the sore throat kicking in. And I thought it was because I had like choked on a beverage or something like that. So I'm the worst beverage drinker. I feel like every time I either spill it all over me or like I'll drink it, it goes down my windpipe instead of like my esophagus. So there was one day where I like coughed my lungs up because I had choked on my drink. I was like, maybe this is why I'm feeling like sore in the throat. Like that's probably what's caused it. But no, sure enough, it's progressively gotten worse and sicker over the weekend. So that has made me so nervous because I've only got 4 weeks until the Tampa Pro, which is kind of the show that I was really most looking forward to, because I have never in my entire career done a local show where I don't have to fly or drive hours and hours, book hotels and accommodation. So I was very excited about that. But I think this has definitely like put a few little lingering doubts in my mind because I've had to take it easy this past week, or at least towards the weekend, with my training. And at this point, I don't have a whole lot of flexibility. And also, I guess the events leading up to this past weekend, aka the developer and my app issues. Oh my gosh, it's just been like the most overwhelming, stressful, just utterly disappointing like last couple of weeks, and it's really interfered with my ability to focus on prep, as you would expect. But I'll come to that later. So I wanted to tell you my gross story. So the other day I was like driving down. I'm like going down my elevator to take Ray out or whatever. Like, you know, you press your buttons, and I was standing in the elevator and I was like, oh, I can feel something on the side of my, like the inside of my cheek. And it was like, I don't know whether I have an ulcer from like my tooth was rubbing or something. I don't know. I'm obviously a hot mess right now. And like I was using the inside of like my tongue to kind of like work out what's going on up here on like my tooth. So I think I need to go and like go to the dentist. But anyway, I have no sooner just like touched the button and I've gone to like, you know, investigate the inside of my mouth. And as I'm doing it, I was like, it was almost happening simultaneously. I'm like, yuck, like what are you doing? Like you just touched a button. So I'm like convinced that like all of the germs from every single person in my building is like in my mouth. I was like, I didn't hold my breath. I like didn't swallow for like, I don't know, the next 30 seconds. I immediately go back up to my room and I'm like, like spitting it out, thinking, oh my God, that's going to save me. I don't know whether that was what was actually the cause of this sickness. Who knows? But it was like, oh my God, I was telling Sam this story last night and he was like, are you serious? Ew, that's so gross. So yeah, I'm convinced that's why I'm now sick from elevator button germs. Ugh. But anyhow, I digress. So I'm sick. I had to take a couple of my cardio sessions off this week, just precautionary. I'm optimistic and like hopeful that I don't get any worse, because it's probably going to mean I'm not going to be ready in time if I can't train at my normal intensity. But let's go look at my data. So I've got it up on the screen for you. You can see the last time I tracked anything for the purposes of tracking it in here was about 3 weeks ago. I think that was the last time I did a check-in for you. So I was sitting around this 129 mark. I had a couple of weigh-ins around 130 back then. So this is the early parts of June. And I think I had said to you guys, for me to make sure that I'm not crushing my soul to get ready for the Tampa Pro, I really want to stay around these numbers. And this is right before life happened with the app, and I've basically had to like go into emergency mode. So unfortunately, because of that, and because of all the like numerous like meetings and calls I've had to have to kind of brainstorm, troubleshoot, and just have an action plan for our customers, and also all of the developer meetings that I've had. So I've had to interview, obviously, several new development teams, and also like show like my app, like what I want to do, basically go through all of the features and all the technicalities of the app so that I can get a proper proposal from them. That has taken up basically all the extra little hour here and there time slots that I might have had to do better meal prep or to get in my extra cardio. At this point, like I don't even leave my house because it's like, 20 minutes to drive there. Nope, don't have time. So I've always had to be very, I guess, selective with like when I do things and how far I'm traveling so that I can get all my work done. So yeah, that certainly threw a massive spanner in the works, obviously, like the physical time and stress, the psychological stress, it's in the financial stress as well. It's just insane, like the amount of like influence that this has over your business entity and how things run. It's just been insane. So of course, tracking went out the window for about 2 weeks here. So I did not have time to grab my phone and like put all of my data in. I was just making the smartest decisions that I could with the time that I had. So I still did some meal prep during that time frame. I still would get all my groceries and I would make the best decisions that I could. And then were arguably a couple of days, like especially during the weekdays when I'm most busy, I would end up having maybe 200 or 300 calories over and above like what my targets were. I just know I don't have any, I guess data to hard proof that I did that, but hitting 1200 or 1300 calories is really challenging without like scrutinizing every single meal. You can't just like eat whatever you want and then expect at the end of the day to come in and go, oh yeah, my calories are 1200. Oh, no worries. Like I'd be like meal 2 or 3 and I'm probably approaching my calorie limit if I wasn't being very mindful with the exact quantities. So frustrating thing about that was my weight got up to 138. So I was 10 pounds above, or almost 10 pounds above the number that I wanted to stay at for this time period. Now, some of that was just due to, I guess, stress, very little sleep. Look, please do not underestimate how much those things will influence your scale weight. I think at the same time, I also got my cycle in there. So there was one particular week where I had like much, much more salty foods than normal. And I was getting my cycle and I was sleeping, like going to bed like 1 or 2 in the mornings, just kind of getting some work stuff checked off the list. So collectively, I woke up one morning, I'm like, how did this happen in 3 weeks? It wasn't even that long at that point. But, you've got to talk yourself off those ledges and just remind yourself of like the logical realities of the circumstance. Like, I think when I saw that 138 number, I have to admit, like my heart definitely sank a little bit. I'm like, oh gosh, really? Okay, well, I guess I'm not doing this show. But then like 2 days later, like getting back onto like my normal bedtime, my normal foods, not eating like soy-based, dressings and things like that. I dropped 3 pounds like within a matter of days. So I was like, oh, thank God, it was just glycogen, water, all of the things and a little bit of stress. So this past week, I have weighed in a few times. You can see here, I started the week off at 135, and then I've kind of ended the week towards 130. So that's 5 pounds over a few days. And again, this is just a perfect example of why we need to normalize weight fluctuations when we are going through like a fat loss phase. Like, it's just normal for things to bounce around depending on your fiber intake, your fluid intake, your training intensity, your sickness, your health, your sleep, your stress. All of these things make such a big difference. So it has trended down over the week, but my average is still 133. So man, I wanted to be at 129, which is really challenging for the next 4 weeks, but we'll see what we can do. So from a nutrition standpoint, you can see here my average came in at 1357. And if you'll notice this column next to it, it says I'm at 10% above my calorie target compliance. And then my protein was a little bit low. And I'm just going to admit, like, this week's nutrition still was not perfect. I would have liked it to have been, but I mean, I still had 2 additional developer calls this week. And like my normal, coaching workload. And then I've had to, in order to get all of our training programs up onto my website as a temporary stopgap solution for people that are wanting to continue using my programs for training, I've had to go in and review all of like our Google Sheets where I like create all the programs. So anything that's been created, at least in 2025, was put into Google Sheets. But I never had to make any adjustments or tweaks to the formulas to track volume because I was never intending for those sheets to be made live. I was like, cool, they just go straight into the app. So in efforts to get all my new programs like usable for clients and for you guys so that you can like enter in your data and like see your volume for your exercises, your sessions, and for the week, I've had to go back through every single program and correct all the formulas and make sure that it looks pretty. And like any of the, videos that weren't necessarily linked, I'd have to go and put some of those new links in. So it's been like, oh my God, so much data entry. It's like the most cumbersome task, but got it done regardless. But yeah, it's just so time consuming. So yeah, I have not been able to do like my prep the way that I would like to. And yeah, I think just the distraction, like when you're training, when you've got a lot on your mind. I mean, you guys have been in a situation where you're just feeling so overwhelmed. Yeah, I think it's just really hard to focus on like what it is that you're doing in the gym, which is normally a place for me for like relaxation. And then to get good mind muscle connection and like focus without like picking out your phone and reading a few text messages or emails, or like just your mind is thinking about other things. And I do have diagnosed ADD, so I think it's even worse, but that's another story. So I'm actually very proud of myself for this past week for holding it all together in light of the circumstances. I think my average protein came in at 110. You can see I had a couple of lower days in the 90s. And keep in mind, if you look at my personal protein reference range, and you can do this for yourself too, I personally like to use somewhere between 2.2 and 2.9 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass. I think that works out to be 1 to 1.3 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. I use that reference range because I feel like it more closely associates or aligns with what your true needs are, given that protein is the most demanding, or your skeletal muscle tissue, your non-fat tissues are the most demanding in terms of energy, and are perhaps a better requirement for not only calculating energy requirements, but also protein as well. So my range is, I think, somewhere about 90 all the way through to maybe 135. So if I get in that range, I'm a happy person, and you should be too. Now, as we get a little bit older, there might be some indication that there's a slightly higher requirement for protein. But I would say right now, I don't feel overly compelled by the data that would suggest that. In fact, we've had new studies come out that kind of don't indicate that there is a significant increase in protein requirements. But what probably is more important as we get older is the training and the consistency of that work and the intensity that we train at, as opposed to needing like exceptionally more protein availability. So Anyway, to get back to this, 90 grams is certainly on the lower end for me, but that was also the 4th of July. So that was such a fun day. I'm actually going to put up a stream of like just different pictures of some of the foods and things that I have been able to still enjoy on like my weekends. So I always try to make sure I've got like a dinner out on Saturday or Friday night, or a breakfast or something, just so that I've got something fun to look forwards to. Even though I'm still prepping and I'm, on lower calories, to me, that makes it sustainable. Like, I really love getting out of my four walls. I love people watching. I love entertaining and, just having a good time. So I've always planned to have like a few meals out. So you can see up on the screen a couple of the different things that I've been able to enjoy, and that has been very nice and nurturing for my soul. But speaking of 4th of July, it was a miserable day here. It was like drizzly and rainy. And then, of course, the rest of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, was like stunning. So we had booked, I think some of you might be familiar with American Social. So it's a franchise, it's like an elevated sports bar. But the one in Tampa here is probably by far my favorite that I've been to. It's near the convention center. It looks out over Tampa Bay. They've just recently renovated, I guess, some of the surrounding like buildings, and it's just got really good vibes. It's always so busy. There's like 1,000 TV screens, a great menu, and it's just a lot of fun. So we went down there and we ordered this, and I've never had it before. It was like a fountain tree of cocktails, and they did. Espresso martini was one of the options that you could order, and you can order like based on the size of your group. So we had we all wanted to have 2 drinks, so we got like the 8 tower. But if you've got a bigger group, like they bring out multiple towers or bigger towers, and you can also pick from margaritas, mojitos. I think that might have been it, maybe mimosas as well. But yeah, we had this beautiful, I think we chose margarita tower, and like they had 3 or 4 different flavors, and it's like dressed in like flowers. It was so pretty. Loved it. And obviously the drinks were phenomenal. So we did that earlier in the day. And then we booked, so there's a river cruise that goes up and down the river here in Tampa. It's called Craft River Cruise. It's quite a nice, like, I'd say it's like a romantic experience. Obviously, we were with friends, which is fine. But they have like an indoor, it's like a mini boat inside a boat that acts as the bar, and then they sit you down and you do like a 3-course meal. So I had saved like all my calories to like enjoy like a couple of things from their menu. So I think I ordered an 8-ounce filet, and that was on like this delicious bed of like mashed potato. I think it had button mushrooms or something like that in like a juzz, some kind of juzz. And then what else did they serve? They had 3 different desserts that we just picked out, between all of us. Soups, lobster bisque, it was just a little bit of fun. So we also did that, but it was like drizzly. We couldn't really go out like onto the outside, which is normally like the fun part. Like you can just watch all of the city as you go by, but thankfully they have big windows, and you could still see something, but it was just a drizzly looking day. So fireworks were not that exciting on Friday, but we made the most of a grim situation. So this particular day here, the reason I'm talking about this specifically is that you can see my carbs were up around 161, which is obviously much higher than what I would usually do. You can see I brought my protein down again to fit in a little bit more of those more calorically dense like food options and some drinks too. But my fiber intake was quite low. So you can see here like the following day, Saturday, because I hadn't had a whole lot of fiber or just food volume in general, my weight came in at 130.4. So this to me, that data point, 130.4, is such a low, like than what would be my normal. Especially considering the rest of the week was around 134. So again, if you ever go out and you have more like low fiber foods, which is what I did, there wasn't a whole lot in the meals that I had throughout the day. I think I had a few bites of some pizza. We ordered flatbread at the first restaurant. I can't remember what else was there. There's a few things, but I just kind of picked at stuff. And then, my meal was mostly protein, and I had a little bit of the potato and stuff, but lobster bisque, no fiber in that. So yeah, if you're doing something like that, or you're having alcohol or liquid calories even, that's really going to change the amount of food volume that sits in your gastrointestinal tract and then what you weigh on the scale. So as exciting as it is for me to look at that number and go, "Ooh, I'm getting closer," no, it's not a true reflection. So I have no doubt this morning when I get on the scale, I'm probably going to still be in the 131, 132 range. So that was that day. But yeah, my average fiber came in at 19 grams. This is probably about where I usually fall when my calories start to get a little bit lower. And part of the reason that it's lower, even though fiber is so helpful and advantageous for staying full and satiated, I think for me, there's a fine balancing act just when I compete, that I've got to be able to have foods that are satisfying up here as much as the foods are satisfying me physiologically too. So I'll have some days during the week where my fiber is a little bit higher. And then there'll be other days where it's a little bit lower. And that's because I make a conscious effort to include some more fun foods and things that are satiating here, so that I can continue on the journey on low calories and to stay, in that stage lean competition physique. So as soon as I'm like not in that competition season, my fiber jumps back up to, probably 25 to 30 on average most days. And that's not to say that there aren't still days where I have high fiber. But I think I really have to pay attention to what those cues are, to make sure that I don't restrict and deprive myself so much so that then I then go and, eat the house out and clean out the cupboard of all of the sweets and treats and things that I, really enjoy eating. So it is a bit of a fine juggling act, I found. And I mean, I have done preps for over a decade now, and I've done them in every way that you can imagine. Meal preps or meal plans, extremely high protein, thinking that, okay, what's going to keep my energy balance a little lower? Avoid carbs and fats, help me with the fat loss. I've done it really high fiber. And again, anything in the extreme camp tends not to work very well, at least not for a sustainable or a sustained period of time. So I'm so sorry that I'm sounding so gruffly today. All right, so coming across to my training. So I was able to get my workouts in, but I can tell you now, Saturday and Sunday's workouts were below par. I still burned a few calories, and the sessions are still long, but I definitely felt very lacking in motivation. And I know that my volume was also a little bit lower than normal. I wasn't loading up the same way that I usually would, if I wasn't feeling like I was about to die. So definitely a lower intensity. But my rule of thumb, guys, is if whatever you've got going on is above the neck or above the head or in the head, I will still move my body, but I'm very conscious of the intensity at which I train. And sometimes I still will opt to just take a break. If you have any symptoms that are below the neck, so it's affecting your respiratory, your breathing, that's when I'm like, nope, I'm going to sit this one out. So because it hasn't hit my chest yet, I don't feel super wheezy. It's just kind of a tickle in my cough. It's a little tickle in my throat. Then I'm just a little bit more conscious about that training effort. So my overall caloric expenditure for my 4 lifting sessions, and these are big sessions too, 10 exercises every session. If you guys are doing my hyper-focus glute program, which is, by the way, available for you to download, even if you're not a subscriber to the app, you can actually access that now on my website. So I will quickly put up on the screen here. If you go to the main page of my website and then go to training programs, you'll start to see all of my programs available. I mean, there are hundreds, but the Hyperfocus Glute program is the one that I'm currently doing. And it is by far the most amount of glute volume that I have ever done in my entire adult life. And, since I've been focusing on bodybuilding. So there's a lot of variety in exercises for the glute medius. I wish that I could put in some of the video demonstrations of the exercises that I have access to, or the equipment that I have access to at Flex and Flow. But I just know that if I were to film those movements and put them in my programs, y'all would be really annoyed because you probably don't have access to all of them. These are like brand new machines that probably only exist in a few locations. So unless you're training at like a glute focused gym like Brett Contreras gym or things like that, some of these still haven't made it to mainstream gyms. So like the 3D Gluteator is like a favorite of mine. I've also adopted like the standing hip abduction machine, which again still isn't in every gym. But like I lay down and like literally I'm in a supine position and I'm doing almost like a scissor with my legs of my glutes. So we've jerry rigged that, but I mean, you still need to have a standing hip abduction machine for that. So yeah, a lot of those I am just not able to. I'm so sorry. Hang on, I'm totally distracted. Jerry, oh my god, one of my cats is like, I'm so distracted now. Pepper is like killing one of my cats. Dude, you're so aggressive. I have all four of my animals like at my feet right now, and I can see Pepper is like murdering my little favorite Cherry. But he ran away. That's good. He looked like he was getting paralyzed. Okay, I digress. So there's still a lot of variety in the hyper-focused glute program. But I mean, there's probably like 10 exercises that are just glute medius, and I do call upon my bands quite a bit. Again, there's nothing wrong with training with bands or like lighter resistances. It's technically considered low load training, and that type of training is fantastic. It's as good as traditional high load strength training. So there's plenty of studies that show doing higher reps at lighter loads, provided that the proximity to failure is high, i.e. you're taking it to like a 7 through to 10 out of in terms of RPE, or you're leaving no less than 3 reps in reserve, then both types of training can be equally effective for growing muscle. So it really then comes down to personal preference. So I've got a couple of glute exercises in there that are banded, and then I'm trying to make as much variety in those programs as I can, while still acknowledging the fact that most people still just have access to like your standard machines and cables. So it's a very fun program. I had someone message me the other day and they're like, Holly, this is the best program that I've ever done for glutes. So that was very reassuring. So yeah, they're like $12.99, by the way, guys. You can download these and you've got a 6-week training program ready to go. So coming across to the cardio section, normally I do 2 to 3 runs a week. This week I only got 1 in. Unfortunately, my work week was really busy. So normally I would have got 1 or 2 in during the weekday, just because they're only 30 minutes. But this week, with all of the additional like tasks that I had for the app and stuff, I wasn't able to do it. And then by the weekend I was sick. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna push myself too hard here. So I just got the 1 in on Saturday morning, and it was okay. I can't say that it was my favorite. I think I ran inside, but it was fine. Got 1 done. And then my walks, I'm still committed to 60 minutes of walking every day if I can. You can see I missed Friday, which was the 4th of July. That was intentional. But I just came in like to close to my target. So my goal is to do 12,000 steps at the moment. And my average was 11,442. So this is really the only day that let me down. But I'm still really happy with these numbers, considering my normal like step goal, if I don't plan to move, is like 2,000 or 3,000. So quite a bit of calories expended there, 2,300 from my walks. And then in total, I came in at 46.94. So that's actually above what I was expecting or anticipating this past week. So let's go and have a look at my targets on that note. So last week I was shooting for 1235 calories, 110 carb, 35 fat, 20 to 25 is my fiber goal. But again, I am extending myself a bit of grace and flexibility there just so that I can stay consistent with the calorie targets because of the increased food noise that we get when we are dieting. 4 resistance training sessions. Again, for me, these are 90-minute sessions. If I could do 5 or 6, I probably would, but my schedule doesn't permit it. That's why I do 4. And then I've got my 2 25-minute runs in, and then 60 minutes of daily walking. So yeah, that was my plan for this past week. So I guess I want to go and show you my schedule for the upcoming competitions and just kind of map out like what I've got to do to get there. And maybe this is something that you guys can kind of factor in for your own fat loss goals if you are also working towards a specific goal weight. So if we look here, this was the last 7 days. My average was 133.6. I need to increase my weekly rate of weight loss now to about 1% per week to be ready in time for the Tampa Pro, which is not what I was anticipating. So very happy with the last 4 weeks of nonsense and just complete and utter waste of time because of this developer. So Anyhow, I'm looking for 1.3 pounds of weight loss this next 3 weeks. And that'll bring me in the week before to 129. And then the week of peak week, I'm optimistic that I'll probably drop down a little bit and be ready. But I mean, if I'm not ready, I'm not going to do the show. I'll still go and watch. But this is just one of those things where life happens and you can't always do and get the things in that you wanted to do. So yeah, I'll be targeting 1.3 pounds roughly each week for the next 3 weeks. So we've got this week coming, fat loss 4, fat loss 5. That's basically the data set that we're looking at here. So I've got a few more shows that I can possibly do. There's an Atlanta show, the Linda Murray show, which is close to me. That's why I picked that one. I know the host of this show here in McAllen, Texas, Bernadette. This is her show. Then these other ones are obviously Florida based, so it'd be really nice just to be able to drive to those if those shows make sense. This is assuming that I don't qualify or win. So you have to win a pro show to qualify for the Olympia. So I don't even know whether I'll be able to do that. I'm going to try my best. So that's the plan for the next couple of weeks. This week, I'm bringing my calories down in order to lose 1.3 pounds per week, which is 1% of my body weight. I have to be more aggressive with my calorie target. So I've used all of my specific equations to come up with these numbers. So yeah, 1195 is what I'm going to be doing this week. And I actually need to increase this to 5,000 calories as my range for activity. So the only thing that will probably differ here is this will be 3 runs for 25 minutes. It's about 3 miles. And I have to get my steps. Like, there is not going to be a day where I cannot go and do a walk, whether I'm doing it at midnight after I finish my work or not, or if I plan to do it on another day and I do, significantly more steps on a particular day. However I have to get it done is how I have to get it done. So I suspect that my weekends will be very active and lots of movement. So yeah, 105 is my carb target. 35, I'm not going to go below 30 for my fats, just to make sure that I'm getting in all of my essential fatty acids. And then I also had to make a little ding to my protein as well to bring those numbers down. So yeah, last night I actually set up a little meal plan for today in my phone just to kind of see what do I actually have to do, because I'm also going to be so busy today. I was like, I don't have to be planning my meals while I'm rushing throughout the day. So yeah, I think I have a coffee in the morning and a protein bar. And then I basically get 2 other meals with one of them's a big salad. Another one's satay chicken and a tiny little bit of rice. And then what's the final one? My spaghetti bolognese, but that has to be served with parmesan noodles. I can't have any carbohydrate sources anymore because my carbs would be blown out the window. So I've got parmesan and bolognese with a bit of cheese, chicken satay with some veggies, and then that's been served with 50 grams of cooked rice. It's pathetic, but hey, better than none. Giant salad to go with that, and then my coffee and that this morning. So that's it, four little pathetic meals during the week, and then obviously I'll rotate through with some different options depending on what's in my refrigerator. So yeah, I had to pre-plan that this week. I want to jump now over to Q&A questions. So give me 1 second. I've got a bunch of these that have been submitted via my Instagram. Since it's been so long, I didn't have anything on YouTube. So here we go. Question number 1. Build, or at least how do I maintain as much muscle as possible? Any resources or programs that you recommend? So that's a really great question. I think in terms of being able to maintain your muscle, I'm quietly confident about the data that we actually have. And surprisingly, it requires a lot less to maintain your muscle than it does to build it. This goes for beginners or advanced lifters and of any age. So generally speaking, if you are just wanting to maintain what you've got, I would say as long as you're doing about 10 sets per week on each muscle group, or somewhere maybe between 6 and 10, you're probably going to maintain your muscle. I did that through most of 2023. So that was the season that I took off. I didn't compete. I was rebuilding my companies, and there was just no time for, any potential fun stuff like competing. So yeah, I think my average frequency of training might have been 2 or maybe 3 sessions a week. because I just had to focus on other things that couldn't be my top priority. And I'd say that most muscle groups were probably around 10, maybe 12 for like a priority glute muscle or something like that. But like I can tell you now, during that time frame, like my chest, my back, my hamstrings, my calves, my bis and my tris, they were not getting anywhere near 12. So probably somewhere around 6. But what was really interesting was during that entire year, despite doing such low volumes, just that low frequency, somewhere between 6 and 12 sets, that actually maintained my muscle mass for me. I didn't lose anything like significant during that time. And I do have ultrasound data for that. Now, if you're wanting to build, however, that's a different conversation. And again, it also depends on your experience levels. So generally speaking, you need to be up over 10, somewhere between 10 and 20, I think, for beginners, per muscle group per week, to achieve moderate growth. And I think probably great growth, to be honest, for someone that's brand new to resistance training. But the difference then lies in if you are an advanced lifter. I think for us to make more meaningful progress, we probably need to have focused muscle groups up and above 20 sets per week. So as far as programs that I would recommend, if you were looking at my website and all of the programs that I have, I'd say like anything that I've done personally, there's going to be like an optimal amount of volume on like the quads, generally speaking, the hamstrings, the glutes, the shoulders, like all of those muscle groups are definitely going to get you into those optimal ranges. Muscle groups that are usually less favored in my programs has been, at least recently in the last 2 to 3 years, there's hardly any tricep and bicep volume. My back and chest volume has certainly dropped off. It probably sits around maintenance volumes. So in those instances, you can still do those programs, but just add in a couple of extra exercises on the muscle groups that you might care about maybe more than I do. So if you are still interested in growing your back, then if the program only has 4 exercises on back, which is probably going to be 12 sets, then add 1 or 2 more exercises, take it up to 15 or 18 sets, and now you're in a good place. So the good thing about my app is that it does have the muscle group breakdown. So every single program you can go and see whether it's in the maintenance range, the modest range, or the high optimal range. And I can't necessarily show you that on the website, but there's a really good description. And if you are wondering what to choose for at least my workouts, or maybe you're doing your own, you can always email me or send a message on Instagram. So I hope that makes sense. Moving on to the next question. I'm just about to go into my 3rd trimester and I'm feeling a little bit lost. Is there anything that I can do to continue? So first off, I don't know whether you're talking about lost in terms of your nutrition, training, or just lost as a human. But I want to start by just validating like your experience as you're going through pregnancy. I think it's perfectly normal to feel a little bit lost in your 3rd trimester, especially. Your body is going through major changes at this time frame, and I think it's okay to not feel yourself right now. I don't know that I've ever worked with a woman who, over the last several years, hasn't felt a little bit disconnected and overwhelmed, particularly during that 3rd trimester. And that's not just physically, but emotionally as well. I mean, think about all the changes that are going on to your body. So I think one of the biggest suggestions or strategies that I would make to clients who are going through pregnancy is to adjust your expectations and adjust your intensity. Like, you're not going to be able to perform the same way that you performed, when you're not pregnant. There are so many changes going through your body. So I think listen to your body, consider some of those signals to slow down, not as a negative, but just as a sign that you're not supposed to push through. Right now you're going through something pretty extraordinary. I mean, you're building a human, you're creating life. So I think we really need to listen to those cues. And if you are feeling absolutely and utterly exhausted physically and mentally, like, it's okay to take a nap. It's okay to skip a session. It's okay to reduce the volume. It's okay to make compromises and adjustments to your training. You may not be able to train 5 days a week anymore. So, sometimes just having a consistent routine, even if it's not what you're used to doing, that's okay. We've just talked about what can maintain muscle. So if you're getting in 10 sets a week on the muscle groups that you care about, but normally you do 20 or so, that's fine. You're still going to maintain your muscle mass. You can pick back up your intensities and that focus at a later time, and you'll bounce back very quickly. So yeah, I think focusing on, from a nutrition standpoint, nourishing your body, not depriving it, and focusing on some kind of consistency, not perfection. You've got so many changes going on that are going to be pulling you in all these different directions. So yeah, I think it's about working with your body, not kind of fighting it and pushing against it. So I know a lot of women also, when they're in their third trimester, even in late parts of second, due to the pressure that you're experiencing on your abdominal region, small frequent meals are really helpful. Rather than having your normal maybe 3 meals a day, grazing throughout the day might be a new strategy that you employ, so that you can get enough nourishment in, so that you can get in enough protein to maintain your muscle, and to get enough, vitamins and minerals as well. And staying very hydrated. But I also recommend separating your food and fluid. Oh my God, such dyslexia. Food and fluid, so that you're not filling up on, liquid with no energy, no calories, no sustenance, and then you're not able to fit in your meal. So separate your meals and fluid if you can. Don't fill up on, liquid before you're about to sit down to eat something. So, little sips throughout the day as well. So that is my response to your question about pregnancy. Let's go in here and have a look at the next question. What have I got here? Pros and cons of supersetting. Is it still okay for hypertrophy? How to properly set up supersets? Oh, great question. So yeah, absolutely. Supersetting is certainly a strategy that we can implement to help with muscle growth, but it's just a very efficient way to train. I don't personally superset as much anymore, not because it's inherently harmful or detrimental to muscle growth. I just like to rest between sets. I'm usually, multitasking when I'm in the gym. So, I'm answering emails, doing something for work on my phone. So I'll take a 2-minute, maybe 3-minute rest sometimes, even though I don't need to kind of get something else done, or I'm entering in weights. Who knows? Maybe I'm chatting with my training partner. So you can rest for as few as 30 seconds, provided that your rep range doesn't compromise or fall below, say, 8 repetitions. It's about that space where anything lower is starting to move towards strength adaptations as opposed to signaling hypertrophy. It doesn't mean that you're not getting any, cross effect, but those lower rep ranges are kind of set aside specifically for strength training. So if you want to get really strong, don't rest for, short periods of time. You want to rest for as long as you can to maximize the amount of load that you can lift. But when it comes to hypertrophy, as long as you can stay above 8 and that you can train, with a high degree of effort, RPE 7 through 10, then yeah, you can rest for a very short period of time, which is kind of why supersetting can work. Now, usually when we set up supersets, it's usually an antagonist muscle group. So, you might do a leg extension and then you're supersetting that with a hamstring, for instance, because that other muscle's going to rest, it's recovering. Meanwhile, you're hitting another muscle group, so it makes your training session a lot more efficient. So if you are time poor, that can be a very helpful way to train. So it reduces your overall training duration. But generally speaking, whether you do supersets or not, you still could do short rest periods, but you can rest as long as you like if you prefer to do it that way without compromising your muscle growth response. Again, the drivers of muscle growth are sufficient activation and fatigue of a muscle, whether it's a bicep or shoulder or your glutes or your quads. That is what signals muscle growth. So as long as you're above 8 and training with a high degree of intensity. So yeah, I think that should answer your question. Supersets usually antagonist muscle groups. You can move straight into the next one usually, and perform your set. So next question is, can you get really far off in your off season when competing in bikini without a coach? This is due to cost. Thank you. Okay, so look, I think it depends on your knowledge, and it depends on your internal motivation and drive and your why. I think sometimes, having a coach or even just somebody that you can kind of check in with to be accountable is really helpful, because it can keep your focus. Sometimes, with life's distractions and busyness, it can kind of pull you in different directions. And I think when you're paying for a service that you've invested your, hard earned money into, then I think it keeps people on track a little bit better than not having that. But if you've got good knowledge about nutrition and training, and you know how to optimize a program, you know how to incorporate deloads if needed, you know how to be strategic with your nutrition. I mean, you don't need a coach. I've never had a coach. I think that's not true. Maybe back in like 2012, I might have hired a coach once. And I think one weekend I was like, nah, sorry. Only because they were a bro bodybuilder and didn't have, they couldn't give me a why. I would ask questions and they were like, just do what I tell you. And I'm like, that just means that you don't know what you're talking about. So I haven't had a coach for a really long time, but you can definitely make really great progress even without one. But I think if you get a coach, ask if they can compromise on the cost. I think most people are like willing to be flexible. They want to help people, or even if it means like setting up a payment plan. I mean, my company, we do that. We've got like lots of different payment strategies. Usually there's a slightly higher upfront fee because of the time that goes into reviewing people's initial data, onboarding, getting the program set up. But at least we certainly offer payment plans to make it a little bit more manageable, and you can budget better that way too. So yeah, knowledge is a big one there. So thank you so much for that question. Do you have any tips to deal with food noise during prep? Oh, goodness. I think I kind of talked about them earlier when I was referencing my own data. Fibrous meals make a big difference. If you're not focusing on fiber at all, then that's a problem. I think there needs to be some flexibility with food variety to make sure that you can sustain the process of dieting, because it is challenging. You don't want to deprive yourself too much. I think a lot of people do that. They completely eliminate all of the things that they love, and as a consequence, it just throws them into this kind of pendulum where they're ravenous, binge eating, overeating, starving, ravenous, binge eating, overeating, and then back to starving and deprivation. So I think coming up with some kind of balance is really helpful. Meal timing is important. I basically eat like on a specific cadence throughout the day based on my internal hunger cues. For instance, I usually don't get hungry until maybe 10 or 11. So I'm coming up to like eating my first meal now. I've got my protein bar here in my pocket for sometime later, and I've got my coffee, but I'll only eat when I start to get hungry. And then I kind of evenly divide my meals throughout the day. And then evenly distribute your fiber if you can as well. Like if you've got the first 3 meals of the day, like Greek yogurt, a protein shake, and I don't know, something that's low fiber, you are going to start to feel hungry during those hours. So if you can move some of your fiber evenly, it should help with that fullness effect and signaling your brain for satiety. And then lots of fluid. I am like constantly drinking fluid. It's also constantly running to the bathroom as well, but it certainly helps with feeling some sense of satiety and pressure in the stomach. So the baroreceptors signal to the brain that there's something going on here. You don't need to worry. You're not going to die. But that's the other thing. I think a lot of people fear being hungry. I can't tell you the number of clients that have really struggled with that fear of being hungry, and it just increases their focus and thoughts about food throughout the entire day. Or there's a lot of macro remorse if they have a meal that wasn't amazing. And I think for me, I've gotten to the point now where, food is sustenance. It's something that I can really enjoy. But I've almost had to just remind myself, hey, you're not going to die. It's okay if you've got a little bit of hunger. And it's also okay if you eat a meal and you don't love it. Not every meal is going to be the most delicious, satisfying thing that you can possibly have. Like I've had to adjust my expectations, because if my expectation was that every single meal is going to feel so satisfying and so delicious and it's exactly what I want, I mean, that is such a tall order. I would be like obsessed with food. And I have been that way, in past lives when I was struggling with an eating disorder. So I've kind of had to let go of like the need for perfection in that way. and I just anticipate hunger now. And I'm like, I just remind myself, it's okay. Like, your next meal is going to be soon. You can do this. But then I do make sure that I'm, listening into like and thinking about the food variety that I have had, and am I going to be satiated from this next meal? And what do I need to make adjustments to make sure that I feel good about it? Next question. Are you still Christian? Yes, definitely. By the way, if you guys don't listen to sermons, oh my God, it's one of the most motivating and, like, again, from an intrinsic perspective, inspiring thing that I do every day. So when I go for my walks, I always listen to sermons. So my favorite churches are Elevation Church, and then I listen to Radiant Church, which is the Tampa church. They have like several 8 facilities around this area. But Pastor Aaron Burke is awesome, and he has some really great guests. But Elevation Church is one of the ones that I listen to just exclusively online. And they also do like a lot of tours around the country, and I think they're actually coming to Tampa later this year, so I'm going to go and check that out. So yes, still a Christian, and it has been the biggest, most positive, life-changing experience I have ever imagined. It was like the thing that I knew I was missing. So yeah, I grew up agnostic. I had no religious influence or say in my entire life. I think I did scripture and prep, and that's about it. I didn't have any friends. I knew of nobody, and it really led me to feeling quite lost, I think, as a young woman, and not really having a good guidance in my life. And going to church has made the world of difference. It's like you have a role model and someone to aspire to be like. And I think, it makes you a really good person. So yeah. But next question. How long do you recommend training for good overall growth? So muscle grows extremely slowly. You guys have probably heard me talk about on my educational videos, the speed at which you grow over like an 8 to 12 week study. It's typically 0.2 to 0.3 of a centimeter. So we're talking millimeters. And that's also like in an optimal setting as well, where you've got a research assistant or a researcher like encouraging your every set and rep. And, there's a lot of consistency in, a research setting. So, yeah, that's what we typically see there. A lot of the research doesn't look at high volume. So there is every possibility that training for 5 days a week and with like 40 plus sets or something like that might achieve slightly more. But at this point, the few studies that we do have that look at high training volumes don't indicate that significantly more volume leads to significantly greater growth. I believe there are diminishing returns. And I think we need to wait for more data, especially in trained individuals, before we can kind of speak authoritatively about what's optimal and what's not. I'm currently going out on a whim because I need to for bodybuilding, and I'm happy to push the upper limits if there is one. And if I've got any more growing to do, hopefully I'm maxing out on what I can possibly do as a natural athlete. So yeah, I think minimum of 6 months, minimum, not even thinking about dieting, whether you're at maintenance calories or a small surplus. Again, I'd argue that body composition in that conversation matters. Higher body fat percentages may not need to or be required to eat in a surplus. I think if you're at maintenance and you're above 25% body fat, that's fine. But again, that's an area that we don't have good data, and our study that we're doing later in this year, we've just submitted the IRB, I'm waiting for approvals, is going to explore lean body compositions. How much muscle can you grow under different states of energy balance? And we're looking at the glutes and the shoulders. So I'm so excited for that. So yeah, at least 6 months. And arguably, if you are comfortable staying where you are for like a couple of years and just focusing on quality training and building muscle, I mean, that's advantageous for fat loss too, because the more muscle you have, the more energetically demanding your body is for fuel. And it makes doing the same workouts that you do today, like in 2 years' time with more muscle, you burn more calories. It creates the deficit for you. So, you can sit around and burn a lot more calories than your, lighter, leaner, low muscle mass body. So yeah, if I've got clients that are willing to stay out of a deficit, for a year or more, like that's how we do it, because it's the most direct way to getting to their ultimate physique, because ultimately most of these people want more muscle. So yeah, that's my suggestion there, at least 6 months. All right. Have you tried using any peptides specifically for muscle recovery or growth? No, I haven't. And I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea. I have a lot of clients and friends that are using it. So BPC 157, I just wrote it down. I didn't want to forget the name of it. So that's probably the most common one. It's called Body Protection Compound 157. So it's basically a synthetic peptide. It's made up of 15 different amino acids. And it's, I guess, derived from human gastric juices. So I think in our industry in general, it's very much considered a regenerative medicine, and it can help with healing and recovery and maybe maintenance of muscle. So I've had a dozen clients like use this, again, outside of my, care. It's something that I can't prescribe and I don't manage, but I know about it. And I've had people tell me that they've been in pain and struggled for a long time, and now they are pain free using BPC 157. So the downside is it's currently not FDA approved. So it's something that you'd have to have, I guess, prescribed by a functional medicine doctor. They'd be getting it from compound pharmacies or a trusted pharmacy. And they'd probably be prescribing the dose. But the downside about it is that right now, most of the research is done in animals, so rats and mice. There isn't really a lot of robust human data. There is some, and it does look very positive, but it hasn't reached the point yet where I believe it's FDA approved. But as far as what it can do, I just have some notes here. Again, this is outside of my area of expertise, so I want to make sure that I'm giving you at least something that is referenced from a research study. So it's helpful in healing tendons, ligaments, and muscles, promoting gut repair, ulcers, IBS, leaky gut. I would be interested in this for that reason. The IBS is something that I've struggled with, and just pain in general. Supports nerve regeneration, reduces inflammation, yes please, and increases blood flow to damaged tissue, aka can help with recovery from training. So it's believed to be very good for a lot of things. I don't push that upon anybody. Some clients will just come to me and they'll ask, have you heard of anything? I can tell them what I've heard of, but I don't personally take it. I don't use it. And I can't prescribe it or really manage it. So it's something that you'd have to go to through outside sources, and seek medical, recommendations on that. So yeah, sorry, I don't have more personal experience with those. I just personally haven't used them. What hair extensions do you use, and what are your favorite products? Oh, cool. Okay, hair extensions. None. Guys, I took my hair extensions out. This is all a la Holly. I think as soon as I stopped coloring my hair blonde, my hair started to grow like crazy. So yeah, it's gotten very long. And it's just so healthy. It's awesome. But I think it's a product by Aveda, which is a vegan brand. I've never personally used or gone to a vegan hair salon. It's just the one that's close to my house, and they're like, oh well, what products do you need? I'm like, well, I haven't got a heat treatment or something that's good for split ends. And this gentleman recommended an Aveda product. I'll put the screenshot up on the screen so that you can see what the product is that I use. It smells like tea tree. It's not necessarily my favorite smelling product, but there's probably other smells for that same line of products. But yeah, I've just noticed that the little dry ends that I had, well, first off, I got a trim. But that makes a big difference. Regular trims, ladies, regular trims. And then, a good quality, nourishing cream or something like that. So this is a heat protectant, and it helps with split ends and just keeps your hair really conditioned. So I just put it in the ends so that my roots don't get super oily. But it's been so nice not to have hair extensions. So yeah, that's that. I do want to go blonde. I'd love to go blonde again, but I think if I do, I will get the extensions with the ombre. So it starts with a darker root, so I'd match my root. I haven't had color in my hair now for 2 years. I'd have the darker root and the ones that kind of become balayage, but they're so expensive, guys. My bundles for 4 bundles to do my entire head, it was $1,200, $300 a bundle of hair for this stuff, because it's real human hair. And then there's whatever you pay for the actual service, which is 7 hours of sitting in a chair. If you're having your extensions taken out, new ones put in, maybe you were coloring your hair in between there as well, and a trim. I mean, it's such a long full day experience. I don't have time for that anymore. So yeah, I'm actually grateful that my own hair is growing. So yeah, but I think if I wanted to do blonde again to save my own hair, I would probably consider doing that. Someone sent a question through about an exercise that I can't make out, but it looks like she's on the seated abduction machine the wrong way around and is like going out like this. I wish that I could have this video. Right now, because I haven't tried it, I don't know. But anything that abducts probably has the potential to help with your glute medius. So for this person who's asked that question, then I would potentially give it a try. If you feel it activating your glute medius and it's not kind of calling upon other muscle groups, probably go ahead. Sounds great. What else? Is it true food sources do not affect LDL levels? That's a really good question. So there's been some interesting research that has kind of come out and looked at, I guess, cholesterol and saturated fats and unsaturated fats and what that's actually doing to our lipid profile. And from my understanding, there are still a couple of types of fats that can elevate your total cholesterol levels. For example, like saturated fats, and that's found in animal fats, in palm oil, coconut oil, full fat dairy, things like that. Those saturated fats can certainly increase your total LDL cholesterol, but those are the less atherogenic particles. So those are the ones that aren't viewed necessarily as harmful. My recommendation just on this topic in general, if you're interested in lipids, I put up a video recently under what is your metabolic health. I've also got it on Instagram, but I kind of go through the lipid profile and which of the lipids are the ones that I'd recommend going and getting tested for, like apolipoprotein A, apolipoprotein B, there's little a, little b, little, so on and so forth. But I kind of break down which are the most like deadly, I suppose. And usually it's the really small particles, the dense particles that are most problematic. So take a look at that and I think you'll learn a little bit more there, just so that I'm not doing an hour and a half long video. But trans fats are another one that we want to avoid. Most of the time, I think they're largely banned in the US now. The only time I've seen trans fats in a product is if it's something that's sold online. Maybe it's not provided or available legally in like retail stores. So people will get around that by just putting things in an online space. So there's no regulatory body governing, what's on the foods or what's in the foods or on the food labels. So trans fats you want to avoid. And excessive dietary cholesterol, but generally speaking, your cholesterol intake from foods, and that's things like egg yolks, organ meats, things like that, they actually have minimal impact on your cholesterol levels. So there's a small group of individuals that are hyper responders, and that's about 20% of people. They may see a little bit of a rise in their LDL cholesterol, but it's not everybody. This is similar to like why we have a salt upper limit. There's sodium limits for the people that are salt sensitive because they can actually have serious cardiovascular issues from having a high salt diet. So similarly said, there are hyper responders to cholesterol, but it's a small subset of people. So I think generally speaking, a lot of this comes back down to your genetics and like your lipid profile. So again, if you refer back to that metabolic health video, I'll talk about like which of those you should take a look at and what are perhaps arguably more important when it comes to long-term health. Fiber is really good at helping reduce and lower your cholesterol levels, but again, there's only so much fiber that you can consume that's going to help lower those numbers. Outside of that, again, you probably need to be on some kind of a medication or a statin or something. And then also there are other lifestyle factors that can kind of influence your lipid profile. Plant sterols and stanols are another way that you can lower your cholesterol levels. These are usually in like nuts and seeds, and then fortified margarines, believe it or not. I remember in Australia back in the day when I was still doing my like dietetics degree, there were products on the supermarket shelves when you go to the butter aisle. It's basically a plant alternative, but they have these stanols and sterols that can help to lower cholesterol. Unsaturated fats, so nuts and seeds and things like that, are also very helpful at reducing your LDL cholesterol. And omega-3 fish fatty acids, also another one that you can help to lower your cholesterol levels. So hopefully that's quick, just very quick and dirty. Obviously not super detailed, just for time's sake. I realize my video is already going on an hour. This might have to be my last question here. We've already talked about supersets. We've already talked about muscle growth. What have we got here? Do I ever take days off? Not at the moment. I do take days off. I take meals off. I go out for dinners often. But full days, oof, that's something I haven't seen in a while. That's probably why I've got a cold. Can Can you show how you fit all your meals in one day? I'd love to, but right now my capacity to do like full day vlogs is just so limited because of everything that's going on. So I might actually take a moment to talk a little bit about the app, since this is the last thing that I need to discuss. So as our temporary stopgap solution, we're putting all of the workouts up onto my website. We've encouraged everybody, and if you have not cancelled, please cancel your subscription. If you're a Google subscriber, Google Play, if you're on Apple Store, cancel your subscriptions. If you are somebody that subscribed for a longer term with our app, like a 6-month or a 12-month, please reach out to my team directly, Jennifer at Be-A-Body or coaching at Be-A-Body. We currently have no control over the app. If you see comments in the community page on the app, that is not me. That is the developer pretending to be a fit. We have no association with that person. And we have no control over the app. I can't get into the back end. We've been locked out of everything. This person messed with my Meta accounts. I can't run ads anymore. She's messed up my entire Facebook. She did the same thing to Mark and Lauren when doing what she does best, manipulate people in business in the developer world. So please cancel your subscriptions. If you were somebody that subscribed through our website, which I was encouraging people to do because we've got more control over your subscription, I don't have the control over the subscription, the developer does. So you'd have to submit a request to support@bea-fit.com. It's not going to be me or my team responding to you. It'll be Jen. And she should, if she does the right thing, just help with your canceling your subscription. And then whenever your end date is, then that would be when you'd no longer have access to the app. And same goes for the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So the downside is I don't know when the app's going to come offline. If it does come offline, I'm not in control of anything to do with the application at the moment. I'm trying to work through a resolution with my legal team at the moment. We're waiting on a reply from this person's individual legal counsel. I'm trying to just basically get a buyout figure and just say thank you so much. We'll be done here. So I want to tell you exactly what happened because a lot of people have no idea what's going on. This is so disheartening because it's the second time I've had major issues with developers. Just not being honest and upfront at the beginning, and then just expecting you to do what they tell you, or they'll hold the app hostage because they're the ones that are in control. Because for most of us, we can't read code. We're not using React Native. I can't go and check and log in on the back end and know what's going on, in that regard. So anyway, the app developer initially gave me the impression that she was looking for a 50-50 partnership. And to be honest, I found that quite appealing. To have somebody that has the developmental skills, is wonderful because it reduces your cost because you're not having to hire, all of your developers, the UX, UI. It substantially reduces ongoing costs for the app. And then that was going to be paired with me. I would obviously handle all of the scientific developments and any of the ongoing marketing, and then provide any of the logic or, the stuff that's really important for nutrition coaching applications. I've got a lot of experience in that area. And then also, training logic, features, things like that. So initially the app, we needed to come up with some kind of partnership agreement. So because we were coming up to the end of the year, she'd kind of just said, look, I'll get started on the app. You can get started on putting together, all of the legal stuff. And that's exactly what I did. So I put my head down, got in touch with my attorneys, and was going to have a formal partnership agreement written up. That was also going to include an intellectual property licensing agreement, because I would be bringing things that were my intellectual property, special logic, and features that, you don't typically see in apps. I wanted to make sure that all of that was protected. And then also, I already made applications for all of my trademarking and things like this. So we also needed to get a trademark assignment set up. Once, we'd signed our contracts, then I would assign the trademark to that new entity that we were creating. So initially, she set the app up under her business entities. And that was with the understanding that as soon as we had an agreement in place, we would switch everything over to the new entity, which you can do on the Google Play Store, the App Store. Obviously, Shopify pages, you can change all that over. It's not too much of a problem. But initially, all of the revenue was set up to directly go into her bank accounts, which I assumed would be, adjusted as soon as our contracts were ready. And I had no reason to question her at this time. So the problem was, after we launched the app, she consistently postponed signing the contracts. So she had an excuse for everything. And initially, like, I believed those excuses. It was, things like, oh, the app, my attorneys aren't available. Oh, I've got some personal things going on. Oh, I'm traveling. And she would just continuously give me these excuses. But where the red flags really started to pop up was she would agree to like attending meetings. She would set meetings, not show up, and just leave me and my team just sitting on calls. Like, is she going to come? Is she not? And this went on, like, started to happen like very regularly for like 2 or 3 months. And that was really when like that type of behavior started to be like very red flag to me. So eventually she would like upload programs and things. So like obviously I've had a couple of new releases and we've had a challenge also run in this time frame. So eventually she would get those things done. She would have somebody like reskin the website to kind of match all the marketing. But it just kind of started to wane on my patience. Like, I was getting really frustrated. I've never been in a situation with somebody that was so unreliable. It was like disappear and then, show up a week later like a wrecking ball. It was wild. So I'd also repeatedly asked dozens of times for this person to set up a company bank account. Like, I need to get access to all of my personal administrative stuff. I need to be able to see what the company is generating in terms of revenue so that we can check reports. We can then set budgets, do strategic planning, like all of the normal things that go into like operating a business. But instead she just avoided it, or would tell me that she'd get to it. But meanwhile, all the revenue is flowing directly into her, personal bank accounts. I don't know whether it's personal or business. It doesn't matter. I had no access to any of this. So also after the launch, she'd set up all of the ongoing like development services and fees, like hosting fees and things like that. They were all set up under my personal credit cards. So not only was like I getting charged for all of those things, which, the business was supposed to cover 50-50, it was meant to be split, not us as individuals or me as an individual. And I was also covering the costs for like a lot of our graphic creation, and then paying our staffing too for customer support. I was wearing it all. Meanwhile, I had no access to the revenue, and like it was supposed to be coming out of the company profits. Like, that would make sense. And I had said this numerous times. So anyhow, that was happening. My team was starting to become furious and just really frustrated at just the lack of like consistent normal communication. So it wasn't until June, just recently, like I was talking to you about, hey, go and sign up to this new challenge or it's coming soon. I kind of just reached a breaking point. I just said and made it really clear to her, I'm not going to continue to work on this app and invest all my time and energy like running these challenges and dumping money into advertising if you're not going to give me all of the permissions that you would normally have in a partnership. And yeah, I didn't have any of the administrative access to anything. She told me at the beginning that, that was something she was definitely going to let me have access to, but she never did. And then out of nowhere, my team let me know that she'd launched her own application, featuring a challenge that was basically mirroring mine, like with a week apart. And we also found out that she was using images of individuals that had no idea that they were being used on her new app. This app, by the way, is called the takeoff method. So if you ever get any marketing or see this, please do not engage. So that's the takeoff method. So she was basically falsely portraying them as expert coaches with this app, and they had no idea. There were also like a bunch of other stock images and things. One was like a male stripper, or I don't know, something in that space. My team like did a deep dive and like found all this stuff. So yeah, she was just doing like illegal stuff. It was crazy. So I actually then reached out to Mark and Lauren out in Australia, because she had previously been an employee of them, and she'd given me this big story about what had happened there. And again, I had no reason not to believe what she had said. I didn't think to reach out to Mark and Lauren because they're busy, and I didn't want to interfere with their staff. But I was most skeptical about this because when I saw this new product that she'd launched, it was like exactly the same as what their branding looked like. It was really similar. So when I went to reach out to them, I was like, why can't I find them on my Instagram? Like, we've been friends or acquaintances for years. Like, Lauren and Mark have stayed at my house. We've traveled together, we've holidayed and gone on competitions together. So then I was like, what? I reached out to them on like one of my other business company accounts, like the podcast platform that we have, and found them and hoped that they would like see my message. And yeah, I was like, did you guys block me? And then I realized like she has gone in on my personal accounts and the Team Be a Fit, which are both my products, and blocked them, like hoping maybe that I wouldn't like see them or think of them ever again, which is again like a huge invasion of privacy and trust. And like, why would you do that? So yeah, I got in touch with them and they told me what had happened, and essentially they shared their experience with me. And they'd started building a new app sometime back in 2024, and I guess when they refused to give her equity, like she never had asked, but then at the end, once the app was closer to being ready, she just kind of said, well, I want equity in the company. And I guess when they didn't give her that, she basically hijacked their app, hijacked their Facebook accounts, and basically prevented them again from running any ads on Meta, which like that's a significant impact to most of our businesses. That's how we run ads. So they terminated her contract, and then basically she just held their app hostage. So they had to take legal action. They've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. They then had to rebuild their app, and lost millions like in that whole process. So yeah, that was really eye-opening, and I think we're going to get together and like talk a little bit more about like the potential like legal ramifications here as like a class action lawsuit. But essentially she's done the same thing to me. I mean, I suspect that she never genuinely had any interest in like forming a partnership. I think that she strategically did it, built the app. Again, I could be completely wrong on this. I don't know, and I can't pretend to know someone's intentions, but it seems awfully like obvious. I think that she knew that she could exert control over me because I'm not an app developer. I can't go in and like do the code and things like that. I can certainly contribute to how the logic's written in the app. But yeah, I think once her new app launched, which is basically a spitting image of their product, I have to assume that it's all of their ideas. Mark and Lauren think that it's all their ideas, all their intellectual property. And then since she refused to sign any contracts with me, I also have to assume that it probably has all of my ideas, all of my IP, and like everything that's in this new like product that she's got. So it's just such a gross violation of like my trust and like years of hard work. Like I'm so disappointed. I've never felt so like abused in my entire life. It's just such like inhumane, like low morals. I just don't understand it. Like I've been trying not to be like negative and nasty about it, but like it's the reality of this situation. Like, why did you lead me to believe that we were going to go into a partnership if you had no intention? And you've like stuffed around all of my like loyal customers who are now, they have no idea what's going to happen with the app. Some of them have been in a position where they've paid for long-term subscriptions and I can't give them a refund. I don't have access to any of the revenue from the company. So, I'm going to be the one that, number one, has their reputation like screwed over, basically. Sorry for the cussing, but there's no other way to put it. Her name's not on the front of the company. She's not marketing it. Sorry, like it doesn't bother them at all. So yeah, I think if you come across the takeoff method or you receive any unsolicited emails from this group, please let me know. And I think the biggest thing out of all of this is that for me, I want to say to you guys, if you're considering building an application, trust has to be earned and actions speak louder than words. And I think because I'm somebody that if I say that I'm going to do something, like I generally mean that I'm going to do it. Or if there's a problem, I would communicate it. Or if I was having doubts, I would communicate it. So yeah, I think that it's such a novel and nuanced like industry, and because not all of us have experience in like app development, you have to be so careful. So yeah, I think my lessons in all of this are do your background homework check. Like I don't have a huge HR team, so it's not like I was cross-referencing every single thing along the way. Like you look at somebody's history and track record of app developments, And, you know, I genuinely, if someone tells me something, I would probably believe them. But maybe that's just me being completely naive and like lessons learned. Not everyone has the same moral compass as you do. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. So hopefully we come to a resolution soon. This person has a couple of days to get back to me with a realistic price, like a buyout price. And if not, I've got quotes from multiple different developers ready to go. And hopefully we can get another build up in like the next 12 to 13 weeks or so. So that's the plan. Or I can acquire it. We don't lose the app. I just have a new team of developers managing and maintaining the app. And then I'll just have people resubscribe to that same platform. So that would be my preference. But, you know, I'm also not going to sit around and wait while my reputation and everything is on the line. So I have to make some pretty quick decisions with everything. But yeah, I'm just disgusted. I don't think, I think it probably comes down to like people's lack of emotional intelligence and ability to just speak honestly and convey things like transparently. I mean, that's something that I've tried to do, you know, with you guys for so many things. And it's just so disappointing that not everybody has the same, like ethics. It's just disgusting. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. But I try to be positive. I mean, you can let this stuff like weigh you down and, you know, eat you alive, and like what good does that serve? So I'm most excited about the future. I know this is the third time now I'll have rebuilt this app. And it will be bigger and better. And I mean, now I don't have a non-compete with Carbon, like the nutrition stuff's like ready to go. So that's really exciting. And that'll be out probably by the end of the year, or like in the new year as we start. So that's going to take a little bit of time to get things moving on. But yeah, this was such a spanner in the works. Like I would have already been started on the nutrition coaching app had this not come up. So crazy times, guys, crazy times. But yeah, I'm glad it happened now and not like years into like to the development of the business, because that could have been 10 times worse. But I am going to wrap things up. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of your questions. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Please support me in this journey. All of the revenue that we generate from the programs that are now on my website will go towards either rebuilding this app. And I mean, apps are not cheap, as you can probably imagine. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it also just goes towards probably the legal fees that are going to be involved in the next couple of months. So yeah, there's that. But anyway, have a great week ahead, guys. I'm going to hope to God that my cold goes away and I can get a good week of training, and then I can bring this all together and still compete at the Tampa Pro. We'll have to see how things go. But until next week, I'll see you in my next video.